even in World War II, the Swiss still identified as Swiss. Sure, there were some sympathies with Germany during that time. And you know, one of the moustache guy's plans was to unify all German-speaking people, and some of the German-speaking Swiss did have sympathies with that plan. Even in the German-speaking part of the country, though, when an invasion was feared in some of the cities near the border, the rich fled into the mountains. They weren't identifying as Germans. But the real treasure here is Ticino, the Italian-speaking part of the country. Ticino is a canton to the south of Switzerland, and they speak Italian there. And the border is mostly with Italy. And there was a lot of family and friendship relationships across that border, even before the war. And so when the war started and the border was closed and refugees started coming out of Italy, trying to get into Switzerland, some of these people actually knew people on the Swiss side of the border. And the army that was manning the border, they were not from Ticino. The Swiss army had posted people away from their original regions so that they would obey orders, basically, and not fraternize with local people too much. And at one point, things came to a head. When the Germans invaded Italy, things got much worse in Italy, and a flood of refugees started for the Swiss border. And many of them started getting refused by the army. And the authorities in Ticino thought that this was wrong, that this was a humanitarian emergency and that more refugees needed to be let in. These were mostly people fleeing a genocide. And what they did at the time is extraordinary. First, they got someone from the central government in Bern to come to Ticino. So this is basically like a state government, if we were in the US, demanding the presence of, it's like your president. And to convince them to come, they didn't say, we have a humanitarian emergency at the border. They probably thought that would not have worked. They said, we have chaos. We need you to come and help us to restore order. That got the guy coming on the double. Then they sat down with him. The executive of the canton sat down with the federal councillor who had come at their request from Bern and asked for something crazy. They asked that their canton be given the control of its own borders, the national border, in wartime, nothing less. And in order to do that, they organized themselves ahead of time and decided that only the people from the political party of the person who was coming from Bern would speak at that meeting, that the other ones would zip it. They had their own discussion ahead of time. And they obtained control of their own border and started to accept refugees. Historical research shows that along the Ticino part of the Swiss border during World War II, around 85% of people who came asking for asylum got in. This is not usual for the rest of the Swiss border at the time. 3 of those refugees were my husband's dad, his uncle, and his grandmother. Yeah.